Alaska. We now move on to the defining crisis of West Asia, where after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's announcement on the Gaza takeover plan, there are several protests taking place throughout the world, in London, Chile, and also in Tel Aviv in Israel. People in London are protesting the country's decision to ban the Palestine Action Group. As a result of the London police have detained more than 460 people who were protesting. Hundreds of people gathered at Parliament Square in London denouncing Israel's war on Gaza. Meanwhile, demonstrators are marching in Chile in a rally called Empty Pots, which is a pro-Palestine rally. The people are now marching through Santiago against Gaza's hunger crisis. People were also seen carrying Palestinian flags, banners, and saying, "Stop the genocide." And Chile does not remain silent. There are also hundreds of people who have taken to the streets in Tel Aviv against the escalation of the war in Gaza. The protesters are demanding the release of hostages and an end to the war. Here's what the protesters had to say from Tel Aviv, London, and also in Chile as well.
Well, I feel really bad because I'm a retired prison officer. I've been retired 2 years. I've never ever broken a law in my entire life. I've upheld the law, but this law is absolutely ridiculous. To call people that are trying to stop a genocide terrorists is ludicrous, and this government should be shameful. They are complicit in genocide.
I think the new plan is just another plan that is going to fail, and it could very well be the end of our hostages, and of course it will take probably more lives of our soldiers. I don't think it's going to work. All the plans haven't worked up until now.
No podemos como humanos permitir esto. Están impidiendo la entrada de alimentos, de necesidades básicas de toda la población en Gaza y hoy están todos a punto de morir y lo vamos a ver todo por televisión. Y esto es lo poco que podemos hacer quienes no tenemos los lugares de poder en el mundo.
We're now joined by Professor Rohan Gunaratne. He's an international security expert. He joins us live from Singapore to discuss this further. Professor Gunaratne, thank you very much for joining us. We have seen protests all over the world for many, many months now over Israel's war in Gaza. However, what we have been seeing as well, which is surprising, which is huge protests across cities, across Israel. Recent surveys indicate that around 67% of Israelis favor concluding the conflict in Gaza. However, Benjamin Netanyahu and his security cabinet continue to approve more plans expanding operations in the enclave. What are your thoughts to how Benjamin Netanyahu is acting in this conflict, and if he is really protecting the interests of the Israeli people in continuing this war in the manner that he is?
Prime Minister Netanyahu is a right-wing leader, and in his cabinet he has a number of right-wing politicians, and they are putting extreme pressure on him to dismantle the Hamas governing and the military structures. That means Hamas will disarm, Hamas will release the hostages, and Hamas will surrender. But this is unlikely to happen. It is unlikely to happen because there isn't sufficient support for him to do that. Of course, the security and intelligence community also wants Hamas rule completely ended, because with Hamas you cannot have an agreement, you cannot have a negotiation, because Hamas will eventually return back to violence. So what is important is for the international community to understand that after staging that attack, the devastating attack in 2023, Hamas is still clinging on to power in Gaza, and no ceasefire is possible with Hamas, because Hamas will not release these hostages unless Egypt and Qatar will come to an agreement for Hamas to surrender, disarm and release the hostages. So Prime Minister Netanyahu's position is driven by national security interests, national security considerations of Israel, because he doesn't want another attack to take place after a few years. So I think the people should consider the point of view of the Israeli national security experts, and also the pressure Netanyahu is facing both from the left wing and the right wing.
Professor Gunaratne, we've also seen Netanyahu go against his defense chief, his army chief, in this decision to retake Gaza City, possibly putting hostages and at danger, and of course, most likely going to cause a lot more bloodshed in the densely populated area. What are your thoughts on Netanyahu's governance claims that he is prolonging this war for his own benefit? As we've just cited, that 67% of Israelis disagree with the continuation of the conflict. The man at the middle of this, what's your analysis of his actions in the past couple of months, especially since international and domestic pressure continues to mount on him?
Netanyahu has lost very significant support globally and also within Israel. However, we must understand why that has happened. It is because the Israeli citizens have been constantly bombarded from Yemen, from Iran, from the Lebanese Hezbollah, and also from Hamas. So they want peace, and they believe that there must be a negotiated solution. There must be a ceasefire. But Netanyahu and the right-wing politicians are determined to end Hamas, meaning eliminate Hamas. And also, if that happens, the likelihood of the remaining hostages being released alive is very, very slim, because Hamas will kill them. Hamas has already killed a number of hostages. Hamas will have no hesitation of eliminating the remaining hostages. Of the 53 hostages, according to Israeli intelligence that has now been made public, only about 20 are alive, and even those hostages will be killed by Hamas if there is a military offensive. And that military offensive has just started after the Israeli Security Cabinet approved the plan to take complete control over Gaza.
Professor Rohan Gunaratne, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. Pleasure to speak to you, as always. We now move on. Gaza's Civil Defence Agency has said that at least 37 people have been killed by Israeli fire, including 30 civilians who are waiting to collect aid. Reports suggest that 12 people were killed and nearly 200 wounded when Israeli forces opened fire on them as they gathered near a border crossing in northern Gaza. 6 more people were killed and 30 wounded after Israeli troops targeted civilians assembling near an aid point in central Gaza. Thousands of Palestinians congregate daily near food distribution points in the enclave. Israeli restrictions on the entry of supplies into Gaza since the start of the war nearly 2 years ago have led to shortages of food and essential supplies. As a result, many countries have come forward to support Gaza with humanitarian aid. While expressing grief over the death of his son, Palestinian man Ismail Quandil has said that Gazans are sending their sons to bring food and Israelis kill them. Let's in fact listen in to what he has to say.
صار معنا الولد هذا رايح يجيب طحين ورايح يجيب أكل لإخوته وإحنا يا عمي فجأة دورنا على الولد دور على الولد قالوا في مفقود يا عمي في مفقودين في الشفا رحنا لقيناه مرمي على باب الشفا هو وكمان كم من.
We now move over to Europe, where German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has